Raconteur Rye. Am I saying that right? Raconteur? I'm gonna say Raconteur. If you know bourbon, and if you know Wild Turkey bourbon, more importantly, chances are you know David Jennings, spirits author and founder of Rare Bird 101. Well, as much as David Jennings loves Wild Turkey bourbon, he also loves rye whiskey. So in partnership with the Woodwork Collective, they have announced a collaboration called Raconteur Rye. This is a small batch, barrel-proof rye whiskey that's also finished in Mizunara casks. It will actually be launching tomorrow in limited quantities on May 10th. Should you try and grab one? Come right back and find out. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and do all the things you need to do to help me reach that 100,000 subscriber milestone. I'm about 500 subs away from 90,000, so getting there. So hopefully we'll see what the rest of 2024 brings. But thank you all for your support. So first, let's talk a little bit about the Woodwork Collective. Who they are. They create bourbon and ryes by leveraging barrels and whiskey expertise like David Jennings. They source a lot of different ingredients. They experiment with unique blends and finishing processes. They look at wood species, char level, finishing methods, and maturation time to create independently bottled expressions like this one. So Raconteur Rye is a combination of 3 unique Indiana distilled 95.5 rye whiskeys, each aged a minimum of 7 years. So first is a straight rye whiskey aged in new charred oak. Second is a straight rye whiskey aged in a 48-month cured toasted oak barrel. And lastly, a straight rye whiskey finished in a second fill Mizunara oak cask that previously held 16-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon. Now, in addition, the final blend spent a month in Mizunara to refine the marriage. Now, it's bottled uncut and unfiltered at 120.48 proof. The inaugural release of Raconteur Rye is limited to about 520 bottles and will be available exclusively at bourbonoutfitter.com on May 10th for a price of about $129.99. I love this label. It actually features a 19th century inspired design by artist Ricky Frame. Has a nice old school look to it. So let's give it a pour. Now, just to be transparent, David was kind enough to send me a bottle of this in order to try and give you guys a review to see if you'd be interested in it. And he knows how I work. If I don't like it, I'll say I don't like it. And if I love it, I'll say I love it. So we'll see what I think and if you guys are gonna wanna pick one up tomorrow. So here we go. So immediately my mind wants to try to find the Mizunara type aspects to the whiskey. Mizunara, it's a crazy type of wood cask because you can, it kind of gives you savory and sweet spices. Generally you hear sandalwood, generally you hear coconut, sometimes you get a floral quality to it. Mizunara can give you a lot of different range of flavors here, so I'm kind of looking for that, but I don't know if I get anything like immediately from Mizunara, but there's definitely a fruit forward aspect to this off the bat. But initially this is just coming off as a really nice sweet rye whiskey, and I think I'm getting more of the toasted rye whiskey aspects to this rather than the Mizunara, at least on the nose. It's a lot of orange marmalade, which is what you kind of normally get from a good 95.5. Yeah, this is like orange and lemon and strawberry. Again, very fruit forward on the nose. The one thing I will say that I think I am getting from the Mizunara is the really heavy baking spice aspect here, because I'm getting just a ton of like cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, all of that kind of intertwined together. And again, maybe that sandalwood part that you get with Mizunara somehow wrapped up in there, but it's a very inviting type of profile, so let's give it a try. Here we go. One note I missed on the nose that I'm getting on the palate is clove. Clove, nutmeg, allspice, all day long, but it's kind of mixed in with all those really nice orange and lemon zest type notes that I was mentioning on the nose earlier. It's got a great spice. There's a mintiness to it. Black pepper, especially on the finish. And I do think I'm getting a little bit of like that toasted whiskey type of aspect. Now, I much rather drink a toasted rye than a toasted bourbon, but that's just me. So if I'm getting that like gingerbread, like marshmallow note, you know, maybe that's coming through here a little bit. Let's get another sip. There is something very savory on the very end of that, and I'm thinking if there's a Mizunara influence to this whiskey, that's where it is. It's going to be on the very back end of it. I'm not so much getting it on the front or the mid palate. One thing I will say again, the texture is really nice. It's very thick, it's rich, it's non-chill filtered, obviously. It's all barrel proof, so you're gonna get a nice viscosity to it. But my favorite part of this rye whiskey is the punch of flavor you get. It is not short on flavor at all. This thing immediately hits the front of your palate. I think ultimately where I'm maybe getting the Mizunara is just the amount of spice that's in here. Very sweet, but very savory. And that spice-driven profile, I think, is possibly really where the Mizunara is coming into play. But the toasted oak, I feel like, is bringing something to the table. It's got a really crazy balance of flavors, and I think that's what kind of makes it interesting. So last sip there, the front of the palate, you get immediate punch of spice and flavor. Again, I think that strawberry note really kind of hits in the front of the palate. Then as you get mid to back palate, that's where you get like that orange and lemon zest and mint all kind of combines together. I mean, I think you have your caramels and vanillas in there too, but I'm trying to like figure out the flavors that are kind of sticking out. But then the finish, I think, is where all that savory goodness comes into play. The allspice, the clove, the nutmeg, and that's not something you get on a 95.5 rye every day. I feel like a lot of times you do get, you get a lot of spice, but it also comes in the way of like dill and some of those other notes that people kind of shy away from when it comes to rye whiskey, especially 95.5 ryes. Good proof point. I don't know. I'm a fan of this one. It's different. And I think from a whiskey drinker standpoint, from my standpoint, it's what I always look for now. I can't say I've had a lot of like amazing ryes this year, but this is definitely a standout. Yeah, I know I said last sip earlier, but I have to take one more. All right, so because this is so limited, I'm not gonna really give a huge final breakdown on here, but remember, this is about 130 bucks, 129.99 to be exact. On top of that, again, it's about 120.48 proof. You got some really good stats here. Again, 3 different rye whiskeys blended together. If you're looking for a unique rye whiskey, I think this is definitely something you might want to try to get. If you're into a sweeter rye whiskey, a Kentucky rye whiskey, I don't think this is going to be for you. If you're into more savory, sweet, zesty, if you love 95.5 rye whiskeys, David Jennings did mention this is more of an old school type of 95.5 rye, and I think with all those savory spices and the amount of kind of citrus zest that you get on here, I do tend to agree with him. The other interesting thing about this is that if you ask me to compare it to anything, I'm not really sure what I can compare it to. I think there are probably a good amount of single barrel rye whiskeys out there that might get close to this, but I think the combination of toasted oak, Mizunara, and new oak actually makes this stand out quite a bit. But for 130 bucks for the stats and how unique it is, I'm all in on this. I wouldn't pay more than that if any bottles happen to hit secondary, and I hope that doesn't happen, but from a unique rye standpoint, texture, I love this one. Probably one of the better ryes I've had this year, and yeah, congrats to David, and if you guys try to get one, I hope you do. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the review for the new Raconteur Rye. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit that like button, and if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments if you feel like you want to try to get this just based off my tasting notes. If this is one you've had your eye on, if you follow David Jennings, and as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you next time right here on The Mash and Drum.